Okay. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for joining the Community Enhancing Application webinar for round 2 of the Regional Investment Initiative Catalyst funding. My name is Maria Linares, and I serve as the Business Initiatives Manager at Orange County Business Council. OCBC serves as the regional convener for the California Jobs First initiative in Orange County. So we are one of 13 conveners. I'm joined by Jesse Benron, Vice President of Business Initiatives, Dr. Wallace Walrod, Chief Economic Advisor, and Natalie Nguyen with Charitable Ventures, who serves as our fiscal agent. I'll go to the next slide. In today's session, we're going to walk you through everything that you need to know about this funding opportunity, what it is, who it's for, and how you can apply for funding to support community enhancing projects in Orange County. We'll also cover the California Jobs First objectives, what kind of industries and projects qualify, the scoring criteria, and the application process. We'll go over key deadlines, available resources, and information about grant mentorship support. And of course, we'll leave time for questions so that you can walk away feeling confident about the next steps of your application. And I do welcome you all to add your questions in the Q&A portion of this webinar. Jesse, Dr. Walrod, and Natalie will help me answer them as I'm presenting, and then we'll get to the rest of them at the end of the presentation. You'll also have an opportunity at the end of the presentation to come off mute if you prefer to ask your question that way. But if you're not comfortable with coming off mute, feel free to drop it in the Q&A chat. We'll also be sharing this presentation deck after the webinar, so please expect an email from me with links and attachments in the next few days. This webinar is being recorded and will be uploaded to our Jobs First webpage. And then friendly reminder that we won't be covering or answering questions about the job creating application. The webinar for that project category was held on Tuesday, May 27th, and the recording will be uploaded to our Jobs First webpage really soon in the next few days, probably at the end of this week. These webinars are optional and not a requirement to apply for Catalyst funding. And then also an informational webinar on the Regional Investment Initiative was held during round 1. That session explored the work that laid the foundation for the Catalyst Pre-Development NOFO, the Notice of Funding Opportunity, and it provided historical context on California Jobs First and the Regional Investment Initiative. So to access that webinar, I have hyperlinked it at the top of this slide here. And then if you're not familiar with the history of this initiative, I do encourage you to view the recording as it might help you throughout the portion where you'll be submitting your application, filling out your application. So with that being said, we'll now move on to the next slide to go over the California Jobs First objectives. At the core of this initiative is to build a community-led, climate-forward economy by investing in key sectors to drive sustainable economic growth, innovation, and access to good-paying jobs. This initiative was born through the governor's office, through the state, and it is one of its kind. Nothing like this has ever been done before. So basically, we're here to make sure economic growth is intentional, inclusive, and sustainable, and not just growth for the sake of growth. And if you'd like to access the statewide Jobs First webpage, you can find it hyperlinked here in this slide. And then this funding is tied to the original intent of SERV, which was known as the Community Economic Resilience Fund before it became known as California Jobs First. So this is why things like childcare access, healthcare access, housing, and environmental conservation, etc., are eligible for the community enhancing category of funding. So you'll see a few differences between the job creating category and the community enhancing category, and this is one of those. We're currently in round 2 of Catalyst funding, and we have a total of $4.6 million available in funding. $1 million is available for community enhancing projects. Community enhancing projects focus on quality of life improvements such as housing, environmental sustainability, or projects that create good paying jobs in non-priority industries. So please take a look at page 10 and 11 in the NOFO packet for information on the community enhancing project focus. The purpose of the funding is to support activities that advance projects to become implementation ready. We won't fund any projects that are asking for implementation funding. Projects have to be physically located in or significantly involve Orange County residents, significantly benefit disinvested communities, and align with industries and/or strategies outlined in Jobs First Regional Plan Part 2. You can find the Regional Plan Part 2 on our Jobs First webpage, but once I send you all the recap email for today's webinar, I'll make sure to include it as well. So please don't send in implementation ready projects, and do take a look at the pre-development activities document linked here, as that provides the list that you need. The pre-development activities document gives you the breakdown of everything that can be included. And then you'll see a timeline here of when we release the NOFO, the proposers webinars, when applications are due, approximate award notifications, and then activities must be completed by September 30, 2026. So I mentioned earlier, 1 million will be available and spent on activities for projects that address any topics in the Regional Plan Part 2 and our industries not mentioned in the job creating project section. Although not exhaustive, these would be topics such as housing, healthcare access, green technologies, childcare, and climate adaptation. For projects that are not primarily climate focused, stronger projects demonstrate a positive impact on the climate. And you can see the industries mentioned in the job creating project category here. Community enhancing projects focus on quality of life improvements. So please take a look at page 10 and 11 in the NOFO packet for information on these projects. The project phases section in the NOFO packet outlines 3 distinct stages within the Catalyst pre-development phase. There's concept, accelerator, and last mile. Each phase represents a different level of project readiness and funding recommendations, which ensure that projects at different stages of development have access to appropriate financial support. So we'll start with the first one, which is concept. This phase is the earliest stage of a project where an idea is still being explored and developed. At this stage, key foundational elements are still being worked out. It may involve clarifying what the project aims to achieve, conducting research, developing a business or strategic plan, engaging stakeholders, identifying necessary resources such as what funding, personnel, or infrastructure would be required. Essentially, in this phase, the project is still in the brainstorming and planning stage, and additional work is needed before it moves into the accelerator phase. And then the accelerator phase is the middle stage of a project's development, where significant progress has already been made, but more work is needed before reaching that last mile. At this stage, the project has moved beyond the concept phase and is actively being developed, but it's not yet fully ready for execution. So some characteristics would be some foundational work is complete, research has been conducted, partnerships may be forming, and a business or strategic plan is probably already in place. Initial steps such as securing funding or conducting pilot programs may have already started. And then the third phase, which is the last mile, means you're nearly ready for implementation, where most of the work is already complete and only a few remaining steps are needed to launch or finalize the project. This phase is typically the most expensive because it involves critical finishing touches that make the project fully operational. So some of the hurdles could include obtaining permits, securing final funding, finalizing legal agreements, or completing the infrastructure. And there is no requirement that the project fits neatly into each category, and there are no strict funding limits. However, to allow for fair comparisons, we do recommend using these 3 phases as a guide. And then the project phases can be found on page 6 and 7 in the NOFO packet. And then for the scoring criteria, there are a total of 5 project scoring criteria categories. We'll begin with project impact and equity, which are the biggest scoring categories at 30 points each. The focus of this work has been on impact and equity, with a lot of it revolving around economic equity, because as we know, many people in Orange County are struggling, and that's why the goal is to be more intentional in supporting those who haven't benefited from economic growth. In addition to projects located in or serving residents of disinvested census tracts, applicants may also propose projects that serve individuals who experience employment barriers, regardless of their place of residence. And you'll want to take a note on this. This includes, but is not limited to, individuals who are justice involved, foster youth, single parents, individuals with disabilities, and others, as defined in the glossary section of the NOFO. While these individuals may not reside in a mapped disinvested community, they may still meet eligibility criteria based on income level or other socioeconomic factors. We will consider households earning at or below approximately $95,280 annual income for a family of four, or a comparable number based on household size, as economically disinvested. Projects that target and support these populations are eligible and encouraged, as they advance the initiative's broader goals of equity, inclusion, and community-centered economic development. And then when you look at the application, pay attention to what the broader project is, what the project will achieve, and how the activities will be executed. We designed the application to be really as simple and straightforward as possible. Also, please ensure you reference the pages and the sections from the regional plan part 2 in your response. That's going to be a really important piece. Now, the work plan is worth 20 points and focuses on pre-development activities and specific tactics, with a timeline needed to move forward toward implementation and then help the project come to life. This is where you'll want to talk about assigned roles for key staff, project partners, and potential consultants. It's really important to distinguish between the overall project, its goals and expected outcomes, and the pre-development steps required to move forward. So for example, securing legal paperwork or city permits are pre-development activities. These steps are critical because they determine how funding will be used. And then the org qualifications category is worth 10 points. We didn't want smaller orgs to be at a disadvantage, but we still need to ensure that if they are awarded, they have the capacity to execute their project. So in this section, you will include relevant experience and outline specific past projects and outcomes. And please be sure to also add dates. And then there's proposed budget and budget narrative. That's worth 10 points. And then we understand that some of this work may need to be subcontracted, especially if it's highly technical. So please ensure that it is clearly outlined in both the work plan and budget narrative. You'll need to provide a detailed budget that itemizes costs by category, such as personnel, materials, travel, subcontractors, etc. You can find a budget template and budget narrative document on our Jobs First webpage within the Catalyst application materials section. And the scoring criteria can be found on page 16 through 18 in the NOFO packet. And then we hyperlinked the application to the GrantWeb portal where you can access it. And I'm going to stop screen sharing for just a moment so that I can move to the Orange County census map. Okay, so I mentioned earlier that equity is a key focus of this initiative. So when looking at the map, you'll see different demographic distributions. I'm first going to show you how I got to the map. So I visited the ocbc.org/initiatives/CJF/ webpage. So as you scroll down, you'll be able to see the California Jobs First page, definitions of regional investment initiative, catalyst funding, the notice of funding opportunity. The pre-development activities document is hyperlinked here, regional plan part 2 here, and then everything you need is here. The NOFO packet, budget narrative, budget template, and then our timeline, the proposers webinars where you all registered. The Q&A section is going to be really important for you to check every Friday. And then here's the disinvested community section, and here's the map. So I'm gonna zoom in as much as I can. So we mentioned in the NOFO packet and the application that the key maps to focus on for equity are maps 2, 3, and 4. So here's the drop-down menu. You can, for example, go to map 2, lower income areas, and then focus on the blue and or green where you'll find the lower income areas. And it has an option here to zoom in. You also can go to the designated disadvantaged areas and then areas of intersect, which areas of intersect is map 4. If you're working with Native American or Indigenous communities, they automatically qualify as a disinvested community regardless of location, and they don't need to be in Orange. They do need to be in Orange County, but they don't need to be in one of these census tracts. For all communities, qualification is based on census tract data, and you can see that the map allows you to zoom in and out. And then you can see the areas that represent disinvested communities, which are marked in green, blue, or purple. If your project is a physical development, consider its location. If it's a service-based project, think about whether it benefits residents in those areas. And then for equity scoring, projects in gray areas such as Los Alamitos, Yorba Linda, etc., will score lower. But if your project benefits or is located in areas like Garden Grove, Stanton, Anaheim, or Santa Ana, just to give you an example, where disinvested communities are concentrated, it will receive a higher equity score. Now, if you feel like your project isn't really census tract centered, please take a look at the NOFO packet, and in the glossary section, look at the disinvested community definition, and you'll find a list of what the state considers to be disinvested. And then please also remember what I mentioned earlier, which is that applicants may also propose projects that serve individuals who experience employment barriers regardless of their place of residence. And I mentioned a few other things like being single parent, justice involved, etc. So this is the map. And then I'm going to walk you through the application now, which, by the way, I mentioned earlier is linked on our page. So it'll be here. That takes you to the application. You'll create an account. It's really easy to do. You'll then log on once you have your account. You'll go to apply. And there'll be two options, job creating and then community enhancing. If you read more, it'll give you a definition or an explanation of which application you'd want to apply for. Sorry. And then here's our email, and then the FAQ for the NOFA can be found here. I encourage you to read it. And then once you're ready, you can apply. And of course, you'll want a checklist that you did read the NOFO and that you reviewed the FAQ. It'll ask if you're using a fiscal agent, if there's additional orgs who are co-applicants, fiscal sponsor agent. If you have any partners, you'll want to upload that here. You'll definitely want to include your project name. And we really kept the application simple just to make the process easier for all of you. So the goal is to keep it accessible and not make things so complicated that projects are left out, and they're really good projects. Applications are due no later than 5 p.m. Pacific time on Friday, June 20th, and they have to be submitted through this grant web portal. And that can also be accessed through the NOFO packet on page 10 and on our Jobs First webpage within the Catalyst application materials section that I just showed you all. So this is going to consist of 5 main questions. The first one's really easy. You just select whether your project is concept, accelerate, or last mile. The definitions are in the NOFO packet on page 6. You'll then want a brief description of your project. And then you'll move on to project impact. And in this section, you'll describe what your project will do, who it will benefit, and how it will be executed. You'll then move on to equity. You'll reference the maps to demonstrate that your project benefits disinvested communities. This will be worth 24 points. And then an additional 6 points out of 30 is assessing whether the community actually wants this project. Can you provide evidence or feedback showing demand, and have you engaged the community to ensure that this is something that they need? You'll then move on to the work plan. Here you'll focus on pre-development activities. You'll clearly outline what's being funded and any potential supplemental funding to ensure long-term sustainability. And we don't want projects to stall in the pre-development with no path to implementation. That's why we asked this question. You'll move on to org qualifications. Number 5 and 6 are required, so the budget narrative and template are provided separately and can be found on our Jobs First webpage, which you'll need to make sure that you upload to the grant web portal. And you can see that we made that uh, mandatory option or mandatory selection here. So please make sure you upload that. And then you'll want to include your total funding request, your budget narrative here, and then at least one letter of reference. So that is required and can be addressed to Orange County Business Council, and you'll find more information about this on page 15 of the NOFO packet. There needs to be some narrative, a paragraph or two referencing your ability to deliver and speaking to your character. There are no restrictions. It doesn't need to come from a specific entity. This reference needs to be someone who is not employed by or is directly associated with your org and does not stand to benefit financially from this project. So please make sure that you follow these guidelines. The intent of the reference is to verify your org's qualifications. So in total, the application really is just 5 key questions with a straightforward process, probably one of the easiest applications you'll ever fill out. If you'd like to upload, though not required, it's optional, additional references, you're welcome to do so. And then please don't forget your one-page project summary here. You can then save the application if you'd like, if you're not ready to submit, and it will save it for you, or submit your application. I'll now go back to my slides. I'll stop share real quick. Okay. So the Regional Investment Initiative informational webinar was hosted in round 1 of Catalyst funding and is embedded within this slide here. It was also sent by email this morning to all who registered to attend this webinar. The job creating webinar was hosted 2 days ago on May 27th and will be uploaded to our Jobs First webpage soon. For those who attended the job creating webinar, I did send an email this morning with a recap, attachments, and links. And then for this webinar today, I'll send that out in the next few days to all of you. And then next steps. So I mentioned earlier, Catalyst application materials can be found on our webpage. They close on June 20, 2025 by 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and they must be submitted through the designated grant web portal. Incomplete applications will not be eligible, and proposals received after 5 p.m. on June 20th will not be reviewed. There are no exceptions to this, so we encourage you to submit your application early. And we also want to announce that we have grant writing mentors available to assist you. The mentor will provide advice on preparing a complete and compelling proposal and will review and offer suggestions to your draft. The mentor will not write the grant proposal for you or provide consultation on the design of your project. You're welcome to request up to 5 hours of mentorship at no cost to the applicant by emailing jobsfirst@ocbc.org. So just let me know in that email that you'd like to be connected to a grant writing mentor, and I'll make sure I do it right away. And then information about Catalyst funding will continue to be released through our newsletter. So if you'd like to be added to the constant contact list, please send me an email at the Jobs First email, which I monitor every day throughout the day. And then if anything in the NOFO isn't clear to you, we also have the Q&A portion on our webpage and an FAQ document. Answers to submitted questions will be updated weekly on our page while the application window remains open. So please take a look as there are questions that may have already been answered. We will answer this week's Q&A and upload the document by tomorrow, Friday, May 30th. And I know that was a lot of information. But the bottom line is that California Jobs First Catalyst funding is a huge opportunity to bring meaningful, good paying jobs to our region. So if you have a project idea that aligns with our priorities, we definitely want to hear from you, especially as I mentioned earlier that nothing like this, a program like this has never been done in California. And from my understanding, talking to the governor's office, it's never been done in our nation. So we definitely encourage you to apply. This is our contact information. I'll now stop screen share so we can move to Q&A. And I'm about to lose my voice. Bear with me. Okay. Remember all that you can come off mute as well if you'd like, so feel free to raise your virtual hand and we'll promote you to panelist temporarily if you're comfortable. And we also have Natalie here, so if you have any fiscal agent related questions, contracting questions, feel free to ask as well. Oh, hi, Kevin. I'll answer this live. So basically, you would email me. I would connect you to our grant writing mentors. You'll then meet, share your availability. They'll share theirs. You'll meet for up to 5 hours. I know that for some of the grant writing mentors, they'll break it up sometimes. So if you can only meet 1 hour, the first time that works for the both of you, and then maybe the second time you meet for 2 hours, the third time for 2 hours. They help you take a look at what you're thinking of submitting. But again, they don't write it for you. Um, and that's just kind of like, what it'll look like. It's not a workshop. It's more of a meeting between the both of you.
I will also elevate the fact that they're not going to help you essentially like how do I score higher in certain budget categories. They're here to take what you've done and just make it cleaner and maybe easier for people to score and to make your maybe narratives more compelling and coherent. It's not like you can ask them, how do I increase my equity score on this proposal? They can't help you with those. They can just help you when writing grants can be a challenge for certain people.
Mhm.
Maybe you want to take the questions.
Yeah. What's the next one? Can they help clarify which category we fit best? I'll answer live. So for that, you're better off emailing us at jobsfirst@ocbc.org. The more information you can provide about your project, the better for the both of us. Usually I'll request like a one page or a one pager about your project. And then we'll take it from there. But that would be probably better for you to email me directly. And then the last day to request a grant writing mentorship support, I would say as soon as possible because the sooner you start on that, the better for you. You don't want to make a request on June 16th and you only have 2 days to meet with them, draft your full proposal, and then submit by June 20th. The June 20th deadline is a hard deadline and we're not making exceptions. So if you can request one today, then I'm happy to connect you. You also have to consider they're meeting with more than just one person. So they have to find availability in their schedule, and then you have to find some in yours. And I saw a question earlier was already answered by Jesse if there were any changes to the NOFO. I mean, I'd say one big change was in round one, applications were submitted through email, jobsfirst@ocbc.org. That's not the case this time. I walked you all through the grant web portal, so that was an update that we did in the NOFO. So yeah, just make sure that you're using that grant web portal. We won't take applications through email. If you receive round one funds in this category, can we reapply with a new project in round two? Oh, Jesse's typing.
Yeah, and try. I guess I'll answer that. The short is yes, but then your work plan would have to be separate from the work plan that's already being funded.
Are you all coordinating with the judges for implementation funding and making these funding decisions? This doesn't sound like catalyst funding question, Jesse. It sounds like implementation funding.
Yeah, in short, no. Those decisions are made by the state. These decisions are going to be made by the regional Jobs First Collaborative.
Okay. Can we leverage our partnerships as a smaller org to show a larger impact on disinvested residents served? I'm confused. Leverage our partnerships in which way, Holly? Like partner with other orgs and then submit an application that way? Like collaborators?
I'll go ahead and promote her then so she can.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, yes, thank you so much. Yeah, exactly. We're a smaller organization, so maybe we, service like 18 to 32 certified in the, entrepreneurial space. And I noticed when I looked at the grantees awarded, they're like large impacts, 300, 500 served. So I'm wondering to be more competitive in this space, if we braided some partnerships to show a larger impact, if that's going to help us be more competitive in this space. Thank you.
I would say it doesn't hurt, but I also don't want smaller orgs to feel like they would be left out because they're up and growing. But Jesse, feel free to correct me.
No, I mean, I think as long as it's well, see, we are not the judges of this, but so I guess as a general sense, if people are reading this and they feel like it's legitimate, that the impact is what you say it is, whether through your org or in collaboration with others, I assume that will be fine.
Yeah, but don't feel like you wouldn't qualify or be awarded because you're a smaller org either. This was the whole purpose of this grant initially was to enhance and elevate communities that historically haven't been at the table or represented, which is why I took this job. And the next question, are there details about the previous awards that are available to the public? Yes, although they're kind of mixed up between job creating and community enhancing, so you'd really just have to take a look, but you can find them on our Jobs First webpage, a little bit below the midsection of the webpage. So I'll share screen real quick just so you all can see. So here, you'll just keep scrolling till you get to this section, Catalyst Funding Awardees, and there'll be a total of 14. There's a drop-down menu option, and so you're welcome to just read through that.
Like if you scroll down, we did, I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, so just scroll a little bit. So just pretty much no, back up to the list of projects.
yeah.
Pretty much anything. And so the climate resilient vertical farm feasibility study, all the way to Together for Advancement. Sorry, that got cut off. You want to scroll down to the
Oh,
end
yeah.
of the list. Those were the ones selected by the collaborative for this category. So that'll give you a sense of the type of projects that the collaborative thought were impactful in this space.
Hmm. Any other questions, anyone? I might have pre-answered your questions in my slides.
Okay, I think seeing none, last call, either raise your hand or type in the Q&A. If not, we can adjourn and give people more than 20 minutes of their time back.
Mhm. And I'll send you all a recap email, follow-up email, so you'll have access to all of this. Oh, I see Christy Hernandez raised her hand. Hi,
Yeah, I
Christy.
think you're good.
My apologies. I was just going to do a reaction, but thank you. That's a thumbs up. Thanks for the presentation.
You're so welcome. Okay, so, oh, Holly, will there be a round 2 after this phase of funding, like Accelerator Tech Launch Ready? So this is round 2 of Catalyst funding. There may be a round 3. I don't know. I don't have a lot more information about any other rounds, Jesse, but this is round 2.
Yeah, I mean there's a potential for another round, but the details are still being um, determined in coordination with charitable ventures in the state.
You're welcome, Shawnee.
Okay, that's the last call. Any questions in the Q&A or raise your hand and we'll promote you to panelist.
You're welcome, Kevin.
Okay, then I think we're good. Well, thank
Okay.
you all and best of luck. Thank you for your interest.
Thank you, everyone.